Hey, welcome back! Today we're featuring a budget build for one of the legendary pairings from March of the Machine, Ghalta and Mavren. So in case you missed it, we did a recent podcast where we talked about some of the cards we're most hyped for March of the Machine. Now if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend checking it out. I think it came out to be a pretty entertaining episode. Anyway, one of the cards I highlighted on my list is the Dinosaur Vampire combo of Ghalta and Mavren. They're a 7-mana value 12/12 Dinosaur Vampire with Trample that reads whenever we attack, choose 1. We can create a tap and attacking XX green dinosaur token with Trample, where X is the greatest power among other attacking creatures, or we create X11 white vampires with lifelink, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. So not only is the art on this card sick, but I find the mechanic really cool. Selesnya has already seen a ton of go-wide commanders and also a lot of go-wide support, but being able to go big and go ham with Ghalta and Mavren is what really caught my eye. And so today we're gonna do a budget build to the tune of $75. As of this recording, excluding lands and commander, this build will cost you $75.45 as per NTG Goldfish. I'll cover every non-land card in the deck, why I chose those, and so if that sounds good, be sure to hit the like and subscribe and let's break the deck down. I'll go over our deck's themes of ramp, removal, and draw, but then I'll go over our other themes of big boys, combat tricks, protection, and something we like to call UBP or utilities, bombs, and pets. Ghalta and Mavren cost 7, so we'll need a lot of ramp to get them out quickly. We're running 38 lands, but on top of that, we're gonna run a lot of land ramp. Explore, Ramp, Growth, Secure Tribe, Elder all fit in the 2 slot, while Cultivate, Topiary, Stamper, and Beanstalk Giant are at 3. Now, we're ditching the Soul Ring Signet for this build, mainly because of the price, but also, we don't want to lose mana in case someone wipes artifacts. Lands are more resilient and sustainable, and so I find that the deck doesn't suffer too much from not having that potential turn 1 Soul Ring play. Beanstalk Giant, in particular, can become huge in the late game when we want to start triggering our commander's ability. Harrow, Roiling Regrowth, and Springbloom Druid all read similarly, and as 3 drops, they get us 2 lands onto the battlefield, albeit we have to sacrifice 1. Still, that puts us ahead 1 land. For outright 2 lands though, Explosive Vegetation and Migration Path get the job done, and we also run Invasion of Zendikar. Yay for battles! We mainly use it for the ramp effect, but getting a 4/4 hasty land isn't a bad consolation prize. Couple more cards in the ramp package. Yasharn searches out 2 basics to hand. Not super sexy, but it makes sure we hit our land drops on turns 5 and 6 while also having a really good static ability. This is gonna be a fair deck, and so we can maximize our impact by slowing down other decks that do shenanigans, like using life as a resource or exploiting sack outlets and things like this. Finally, Traverse the Outlands. It's a 5-mana value burst ramp spell, and it practically assures us we can get Ghalta and Mavren next turn. If we play a Topiary Stomper on 3, then on turn 4, we can make a land drop and play this, so then we'll get 4 more lands. Essentially, we'll be at turn 9 as early as turn 4. Whew! I can see why everybody hates green. Anyway, that's a lot of green, but for removal, white helps us out a lot. Generous Gift, Beast Within, and Reduce to Memory are all targeted removal spells that can take care of, well, anything. The creature token we give is usually pretty meaningless, and although Reduce to Memory is sorcery speed, the Exile clause can come in clutch. Sundering Growth is a targeted removal spell that can destroy an artifact or enchantment, and the Populate clause stacked on can let us create another Dino token if we already triggered Ghalta and Mavren earlier. For wipes, we're running 4 of them. Tragic Arrogance and Austere Command are a pair of flexible ones that allow us to save stuff we like our commander, while also still clearing the board of headaches. Meanwhile, Fate from History is an outright wipe of artifacts and enchantments, while Sunfall is a new creature wipe that exiles creatures. We're not using our graveyard in this deck, so Exile or Destroy practically impacts us the same. Meanwhile, the Incubate X means we get a big beater for our troubles. This would usually be whatever, but with our commander out, it means we can start using this Phyrexian token's power to make big dinos. Green is very good at draw, and white has gotten some real decent support too. Garruk's Uprising, Harmonizing Secret Rendezvous are all great mid-game plays to start refueling our hand after, we do all our ramping, and Garruk's Uprising gives our team Trample, which can be pretty relevant, so don't overlook that ability. However, we also have the ability to burst draw in Return of the Wild Speaker, Soul's Majesty, and Rishkar's Expertise. Again, no need to be greedy here and wait for our 12/12 commander to hit the board. I know that's fun, but drawing 5 or 7 cards is already plenty of value and can definitely put us ahead. It is possible though that we draw too many cards, and so a janky card I don't see play is Pursuit of Knowledge. It's an old card that lets us forgo some draw to be able to draw 7 later at instant speed. Lastly, and probably the priciest card in our deck, is Invasion of Ikoria. Fine, maybe this is us using our graveyard, but it's the only recursion spell in our deck. But it's also a tutor which lets us fetch out whatever creature we'll need, and the backside, Well, that's a game ender. Forget trample, Zilortha is an 8/8 that gives our team super trample, and our high-powered creatures can take out big life chunks in just one combat step. Now remember, Ghalta Mavren's ability triggers whenever we attack, so even if they don't have haste, we have a bunch of big boys that can trigger their ability for us. OG Ghalta, Avatar of Might, and Primeval Protector all have a good chance at coming down ahead of curve, so don't be fooled by their high CMC costs. They're huge beaters that can pressure the board and can create huge problematic dinos when Ghalta and Mavren finally come down. We do run some lower to the ground creatures though that are all undercosted vis-a-vis the power ratio to their mana value. Haunted Troll gives an opponent 4 1/1s, sure, but remember it's a 4-player game, so for 4 mana you've put 12 power on the board, which will put a lot of pressure on the other 2 players. Steel Leaf Champion is a 3 mana value 5/5 that can't be chump blocked, which is more annoying than you'd think in the late game once there are other big creatures on our board. And Mana Gorger Hydra is just a 1/1, sure, but in a 4-player game this thing gets out of hand fast. It can even be bigger than our commander by the time Ghalta and Mavren hit the board. Other big boys we play are Pelucrinous World Eater, which comes down as a 5/5 early, but we can pump with Monstrosity when we have more mana later while also fighting down our opponent's best creatures, and Ulven Wild Oddity. It's a 4 mana value 4/4 Hasty Trampler, but can also become a scary 8/8 Lord later in the game. A risk we run by going big is being too slow, but a risk we run by going faster is that, well, we aren't big enough. And so creatures like these help mitigate those risks by being a relevant threat on different points of our curve. The last big boy run is Rampaging Brontodon. It's a 7 mana value 7/7 that'll likely get +7/+7 when it attacks, and with our commander out, that means we're creating a 14/14 dino to go along with this 14/14 monster. Delicious. Now with a bunch of big boys, it's time to get spicy, or janky, and here I mean combat tricks. As much as I'd love to run Giant Growth, it just didn't make the cut. What did make it though are doublers in Zopandrel and Unnatural Growth. These ate up a fair share of our budget, but my god are they flashy, right? They double the power and toughness of our creatures on every combat step, so our 12/12 commander is actually a 24/24 killer. In a similar vein, Overwhelming Stampede can act like a doubler in that it gives +X/+X where X is the highest power among creatures we control. A good old-fashioned Alpha Strike that can just outright kill a table. Duelist's Heritage is also another way to double one of our creatures' power, and this time through Double Strike. It also makes our creatures harder to kill with honest combat damage or death touch, and this card also gives us some fun political table talk because it triggers on every combat step, meaning we can give one of our opponent's creatures Double Strike when they attack on their turn. Moving away from just raw power, Sareth and Nightshade Peddler give our creatures Death Touch, which is terrifying when facing down Tramplers. Now for those who aren't familiar, how Trample works isn't the power minus toughness math that we just intuitively do. In Trample, we need to assign combat damage that is considered lethal to blockers first before assigning the rest to the defending player. And so if we have Death Touch, 1 point of damage is actually already considered lethal. So that means we only need to assign 1 damage per blocker and the rest goes through. Lastly, we run some creatures to mess up blocker math. Challenger Troll means our opponents can't gang up on one of our creatures to stop trample damage from going through. Aggressive Mammoth gives our team trample, which is useful because we do run some vanilla big boys. And lastly, Tree Shaker Chimera is like a giant taunting elf. All our opponent's creatures need to block it, which means the rest of our attacks are likely to go through. Plus, when it dies, which it probably will, we get to draw 3 as a refund. Whew. So we've been putting a lot of work to set up, and so we need to find a way to protect our game plan. Boots are the most basic way to protect our commander, and I like to run it because it also gives haste, but I've noticed that targeted removal isn't as prevalent as it used to be, and so hexproof isn't as valuable because there's so many good and well-costed wipes. Now Lawrence Escape, Tyver's Stand, and Valorous Stance all protect our key creature from targeted removal and most wipes, with Tyver's Stand doubling as a pump spell and Valorous Stance acting as backup removal. But sometimes there are sacrifice-based wipes, or -X wipes, which Indestructible can't save us from. Touch the Spirit Realm and Long Road Home are blink effects that return our creature at end step. Now, we don't run many ETBs, so we can't really exploit that part of it, but they do help dodge everything. Not to note, Touch the Spirit Realm is also a removal spell, but I think the channel part of it is plenty useful and good to hang on to. Finally, Rootborn Defenses allows us to save multiple creatures, especially if we've been making Dino tokens, and the Populate tacked on at the end is great when we need another body to either block or to finish someone off. UVP time! As you can see, we run a fair deck that likes to ground and pound. But despite the value plays we run, I know a lot of other decks can still outvalue us, so we need to find ways to slow them down just to help us catch up. Hushwing Griff won't hose us too much since we aren't running a slew of ETBs. Containment Pre saves us from early reanimation, blinking, and other cheaty things. And Damping Sphere saves us from things like Spell Slinging and Storm, which can also outvalue our big boy plays. Now, these effects impact all players, but because we're less reliant on these mechanics, it helps put us ahead until they're dealt with. Calamity's Wake is responsible graveyard hate, and it can be used on another player's turn to delay them from having a big turn or to stop them from wiping us, or it can be used on our turn to ensure that we don't run into removal or that we don't get countered. Full Flowering is a janky card and it almost feels to win more, but creating multiple dinos is fun and I don't know, I just want to have fun with this. Finally, a card that does everything we want to is Nissa, Ascended Animist. At her +1, we make a big boy. At her -1, we blow up an artifact and enchantment. And at her -7, it's like Craterhoof but for forests. She's relevant as a 5-drop, a 6-drop, or a 7-drop, and so she's one of the best cards in our deck, but also one of our more expensive ones. And that's it for this episode. I really want to hit 500 subscribers. We're so close. But if you could leave a like and subscribe, that would really go a long way. I went budget on this build because for me, it's a fun interpretation of the card. I think going wide is generally the stronger strategy, but going big and going ham makes this a fun secondary deck that's still splashy without having to break the bank. But let me know what you think in the comments. I always look forward to reading those. Stay inspired, friends, and I'll see you next time.